Good afternoon. It's that time again. The chicken box is back. I'm your host, Kevin Impeccable Peck, and this is where you come to just to vent. I think some people need to vent after everything that's happened the last couple of weeks. We tackle different stereotypes, we deal with different issues, and we really, man, today's topic. Are you guys on social media? Every other day seems like it's somebody's Founders Day. So we wanted to pay tribute to Black people versus the Divine Nine. First of all, before we get started, do us a favor. If we popped up on the Afro American Newspapers Facebook page, would you just hit the share button? You know, the button that goes kind of over there. That's right on the because if you're seeing us now, we're only on the Afro American Newspapers that's been around for 129 years, informing, impacting, and educating African Americans all over the world for over 129 years. Man, hit share. Black people versus the Divine Nine. Dr. Draper, my wonderful co-host. How are you this evening?
I am.
I'm on vacation. I don't even know what time it is, but I'm here, y'all. I'm here.
We're glad you're here while you're on vacation. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Chicken Box. I'm Frances Tony Draper, publisher of the Afro, and we have a intergenerational host team, and so I'm representing the baby boomers. How about you, Kevin?
You know, always the Gen X holding it down strong. Boom, come on. Stand up, Gen Xers. Where you guys at?
And Misha Green?
You know I'm representing for the millennials, although I am starting to really disappoint myself as a millennial because I cannot share this stream without sharing to the Afros page. But y'all know sharing is caring, so make sure you do so. Even if I can't get it together, make sure you share this stream with your people. This is going to be a great conversation.
Black people versus the Divine Nine. Happy Founders Day, everybody. If we missed you, J4, J5, J13, J15, all the J's. And it's a couple that aren't this month. I think it's only two that aren't during this first part of the year, but we're going to get into that later. We have some esteemed guests. But before we get started, y'all know the chicken box, if you're from Baltimore, is 4 wings and fries. That's right. So whether you're joining us, grab your lunch real quick. If you're on the West Coast, grab your breakfast. And if you're overseas, grab your dinner and get ready to tune in and jump in on this conversation. Happy anniversary. Put it in the chat if you represent any of these Divine Nines. Let us know where you're coming from and who you are representing today. But we have some guests that we brought on just to in the spirit of the Divine Nineness. We should have had somebody from everybody. Next time we do it, we're going to have one person from every place in the world. Craig Talley, salt, pepper, ketchup. I don't know what fraternity that is, but anyway, because you're my line brother, I'm going to go with it. Anyway, salt, pepper, and ketchup is on the chicken box. Hello, James Nelson, and everybody else tuning in. Dr. Draper, why don't you get us started? And that's because our guests have limited time today. They are very busy. So let's see if we can get the ball rolling.
Okay, we're going to get the ball rolling, but let me say, Kevin, I don't want to assume that everybody knows what we're talking about when we say the Divine Nine. So we're talking about African-American fraternities and sororities. There are 9 of them. And so together they form a powerful political and social community group. And so just to say a little bit about the Divine Nine, they've been around, many of them, for over 100 years. And they've been a major part of the most recent political shift and integral part to the Black community. In fact, we know that the first woman and first Black vice president is a member of one of the Divine Nine, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And so several Founders Day, as Kevin said. And so in January, so today's show, we're going to talk about the importance of the Divine Nine to the Black community, and particularly the importance of the Divine Nine as we've experienced these political shifts. I don't even want to call them shifts, upheavals, especially in 2021. And so we're going to bring our guest on in just a few minutes. But let me ask you, Misha, what's your experience been with the Divine Nine?
Sorry, still here. Do have to hop off in 2 seconds just to handle something. You guys know it's still home. Crazy things. Have to move my car here in DC. But my experience is a little bit different from, I think, some of our guests, because I did not pledge. I went to a college where there were important universities, shout out to Fordham, but we did not have sororities and fraternities. And then in grad school at University of Maryland, I was too busy trying to finish grad school. I really wanted to pledge Alpha Kappa Alpha. I am legacy. My grandmother, my mother, my aunt, my cousin, they're all AKAs. So I wanted to. I just haven't had the opportunity. My dad is a Kappa. So I grew up in a Divine Nine family. My grandfather is also a Kappa. My parents used to go and throw these New Year's parties that were solely sort of, I think, a Kappa thrown event and Kappa sweetheart event. So I'm very much involved, just not actually a member of the Divine Nine.
Okay. All right. That sounds like a not yet. And Misha will be back. And so today we do have two experts. We believe they are experts. They're going to break down experts in their respective fields. We're going to introduce them to you, bring them on the show. We're glad to have them, and they're going to talk about the importance of the Divine Nine as it relates to where we as African Americans are today. And so our first guest made history when she was elected the first woman bishop in the African Methodist Episcopal Church in 2000. Somebody said that she's supposed to be have retired in 2020. But she is still serving, assigned to the great state of Texas, because in the AME, as it is in most Methodist traditions, until your general conference meets and elects your successor or retires you rather, because you're a bishop for life, she is still the bishop. And so she is the national chaplain for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And in full transparency, our mothers were sisters, and so we are first cousins. And so welcome, Bishop McKenzie. Would you just say hello and any other introductory remarks you would like to make? And then we're going to bring on our next guest, and then we're going to get into this conversation.
Well, hey, cuz. Hey, family. Hey. How are you? Yes, thank you for inviting me for a conversation and to share, especially, I guess, the day after the 108th anniversary of the founding of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated on the campus of Howard University by 22 outstanding students. One of them happened to be your grandmother and my grandmother. And so we walk in, let's say, in the tradition of the red and white. Yeah, and your great grandmother, absolutely. And can't keep up with all of the greats and the this and the greats and that, but we're all family and we're all part of the Divine Nine. So glad to be at the table for discussion.
Thank you. So glad to have you. Kevin, do you want to introduce Delegate Charles, or would you like for me to introduce him?
You can, because I think it's a warm wind blowing off the ocean right behind you.
Okay, for those who are just joining us, Impeccable is on vacation on the beach, but I am happy to introduce, and I'm really thankful that Delegate Nick Charles has joined us today. The Maryland House opened, Maryland Legislature rather, opened on yesterday, yet he's here. He's been a member of the House of Delegates since January of 2019. He's a member of the Health and Government Operations Committee, a member of the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland. In addition to having served in the Air Force and graduating from the University of District of Columbia, he is a proud member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, very active in the community. Somebody told me, Delegate Charles, that you are an amazing father and that you're making great inroads in the Maryland House of Delegates. We welcome you to the Chicken Box, where we're not afraid to speak our truth. Would you like to just say hello before we get into the conversation?
Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate you guys having me on the show. It's definitely a busy time right now. I am literally in the middle of a organizational meeting for a Health and Government Operations Committee. We're actually about to vote right now, so I have to kind of direct my attention to this for a second. And it's such a crazy time right now that I can do both, be live in one meeting and then be live with you guys right now. But I still need to pay attention to what's about to take place, and then I will get right back to you guys immediately.
Thank you so much. Look, we understand we're all zombies, and we've taken multitasking to a whole new level. So do what you need to do, and we'll see you back in a few minutes. But we do thank both of you for being on the show. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate your contributions to this conversation. So with the chicken box, we don't hold back. We share how we feel. And so before we even get into the history, we're going to just ask people to just jump on the box. When you hear the words divine nine, what comes to mind, Kevin? And then we're going to ask you this same thing, Misha. We're going to ask you, Bishop McKenzie, and if Delegate Charles is back, we will ask him as well. What do you think of, Kevin, when you hear the words divine nine?
Well, for a long time, it really didn't register. You know what I mean? It was always the panhandle, and then as it got later on in life, the Divine Nine, I said, oh wow, it is nine of us, because when you really count, because somehow you can get elitists inside your own organization sometimes and think it's nobody else, but it really is a lot of us who come together with ideals and serve the community in such a great way and make an impact. And then when you see the networking that goes amongst the nine, it's a common thing that you went through, even though it was a different organization. And so I think that brings us together. So that's kind of the first thing I hear about Divine Nine. And as my cousin Rachel says, power. Boom. She summed it up in one word. I was looking for that word, Rachel, but I'm on vacation. I can't find those kind of words right now.
Thanks, Kevin. Bishop McKenzie, what comes to mind when you hear that term?
Collective action. You have 9 organizations that of college-trained and educated men and women who desire to make an impact in a variety of areas and interests that are fueled by their values. So when I think of the Divine Nine, it reminds me that we are not myopic. We like to believe that as Blacks in the Black diaspora, Black Americans, Black Haitians, Black Jamaican, Black, African, whatever, that we think with one mind, one spirit, we move in one direction. That is not true. We have many different flavors to us that we like to celebrate, many different parts to us that we like to celebrate. And the Divine Nine kind of represents that kind of flavor that each of us bring to the table, our own uniqueness, our own culture, our own style. But the ultimate goal is to serve the best interests of our communities and our neighborhoods.
Okay.
Plural.
Thank you. Right. Thank you so much. Delegate Charles, I don't know if you can weigh in yet. If you can, we'll, go on and unmute your mic. If you can't yet, we'll get you. He says, un momento. We'll get back to him. Misha Green, why don't you do this, Misha? Tell us what you think of when you hear Divine Nine. And then let's talk about some of the stereotypes around Divine Nine.
Yeah. So I love that word power that Rachel said before, because I think that's definitely what comes to mind. The ability to really influence other people is, I think, incredibly important, but particularly when thinking about education and policy and creating efforts and programming in order to get closer towards justice and equity. And so I think that's so beautiful that we have the Divine Nine, who really has been able to focus on that since the very beginning. And so that's what I think about when I think of the Divine Nine, is power and the ability to influence change among our people, which I think is really, really important. All right, now let me get into stereotypes. So again, I just want to say that these are solely stereotypes, not views of the Afro or or necessarily even any of us on the panel, but this is why we need you guys to weigh in the comments. So please do so. So one stereotype I'll say actually came from what was said about the Zeta Phi Beta sorority in November on the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And that's what they were, just a diverse group of dancers. But this stereotype, which I've even heard within the Black community, is that people who belong to a sorority or fraternity in the Divine Nine are just a group of steppers or performers. That it's just a popularity contest, that it's solely a club, solely created because Black people couldn't join white organizations. That there's certain kinds of women and men that belong to these particular organizations. So obviously, you know, factually has been able to see that certain sororities and fraternities rep certain fields, but then there are stereotypes that people have created surrounding these sororities and fraternities. So, for example, Kappas are known as the pretty boys now, right? Certain skin complexions are associated with particular organizations. Again, I come from an AKA family, and I know many times I've heard people say, oh, well, AKAs are primarily really light skinned, right? And things like that. Again, solely stereotypes. And one that is really ringing true, and there was actually an article about it by a Black person in the UK, which I think their experience is super different than ours. But this was that basically sororities and fraternities in the Divine Nine are not important to Black culture anymore because of the steps towards integration. A lot of people think that. And I just saw Rachel's comment about the paper bag, going about to the stereotypes of light skin and things like that. But a lot of people think now, just like the conversation about HBCU, where we don't need the Divine Nine because integration is a thing and people can work together. Again, these are just stereotypes. Please, let's see what people have to say in the comments.
Okay, thanks, Misha. I've heard some of those stereotypes as well. I'm going to ask Delegate Charles to weigh in. And I saw someone put in the chat that the Divine Nine were Black secret societies. And so, yep, there it is. So Byron says that's a stereotype. What sayeth you, Delegate Charles? What do you say?
Say that one more time.
What do you say about stereotypes that either you've heard or what Misha said?
You know, stereotypes are there. I, as you already know, I'm an Omega, and my grandfather, however, he's a Beta Chapter Alpha from Howard University, and my father is an Omega as well. So you have those stereotypes. I don't necessarily believe in them. You get a lot of bad stereotypes about Omega Psi Phi, but when you look at the true essence of Omega, you see a lot of friendship, and you see a lot of men working together to lift as we can. So I don't truly believe in those stereotypes as they have been pushed out, but we have a lot of very somebody's comment just came across. But yeah, I don't subscribe to those.
Okay.
I don't subscribe to them. It's impeccable. Your face looks a little twisted up.
Nah, man, unless you're feeling away. My face is not twisted up from you. Good to have you on the show, Delegate Nick Charles. But just based on your comment, my face is probably twisted up because my sister-in-law just bought a big dog. I mean, a big dog. I can't. and I was like, okay. How you got to be friendly when a dog sniffs you that doesn't know you, and act like you cool with it. But I'm really not cool with it. So anyway, but I guess maybe because the Omega was talking, he walked over. So they say that Omegas and dogs go together. So I'm not sure.
Oh, no.
But this is the chicken pox. Have you ever heard it before? Everybody's heard. They bark when they step. Where does that come from? Where does that come from? their favorite song is Atomic Dog. So talk to us, Nick.
Listen,
Come on,
man. The,
PC.
the
This
good,
isn't
listen, the good
this
brothers,
isn't
my
a
good
church
fraternity
meeting.
brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, we have very dogmatic personalities. We aggressively go after the things that we want. When you look at what's happening, how we have the first African American woman becoming the vice president of the United States of America, it was an Omega man. It was an Omega man who dogmatically attacked and made sure that he delivered South Carolina. Let's never
Boom.
forget that part.
Absolutely. I love it.
All right, I hear you representing for Omegas, and that's good. We're all in here together. What do you think? What do you say, Bishop McKenzie, when you hear these stereotypes?
Well, everybody, if you're not on the inside, you have an opinion from the outside, and it's outside observation without knowing the true core values or understand what it is about. So it's just easier to create stereotypes if you don't know the person or the organization. Just like they have stereotypes about African Americans, period. Stereotypes about who you do and what you do separate you in a variety of categories. For women, you're either a Jezebel, a mammy, or some other kind of derogatory term. And so if you don't know, then I have to create my own image of what I think that it is. And so for us, we believe that coming together collectively around a certain subset of values to be able to further the cause and help people, help both men and women in neighborhoods and community on a variety of subjects, whether it's education, health, whether it's social action and justice movements. We are able to do things better together. That's why the Divine Nine. Yes, Kevin, we used to call it Pan Health Organization, and then it morphed into the Divine Nine. We come together, although we're in separate organizations, so that we can communicate with one another, see how we can help one another, work together, and all of those things. So if you don't know, then I try to make up what I think it is. So this is an organization that does this is an organization that does this is an organization. It's comments from the outside, not from the inside. Then the other thing is we have heard for years that HBCU education is irrelevant. You can go to any school you want to. You don't need to go to an HBCU. Greek organizations, Black organizations like the NAACP, the Southern Christian Leadership Council, CORE, all of, those are all irrelevant organizations. I think today you have seen that those organizations are not irrelevant because there's a time in which we need to circle our own wagons, present our own agenda, knock on doors ourselves and stop waiting for other people to knock on those doors for us. There are in HBCUs, there are young men and women who attend those institutions. Many of them are the first in their families to go to college. They cannot afford a $40,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year education if they don't have a scholarship. And HBCUs are affordable, but HBCUs crank out quality graduates. Quality graduates. The majority of the Black doctors in the United States come out of HBCUs. We're talking about attorneys, we're talking about architects. And sometimes you need to be in a group that looks at you not just at a number, but looks at you as a person and will approach you as a person. I'm not just trying to transmit this body of information so that you can learn and turn it around and make it into a career, but I am interested in critical thinking. I'm interested exposing you to experience and ideas that's going to help you grow as a whole person, not just head, but develop your heart so that when you go out into the community, you're able to make an impact like Kamala Harris and other Greek organization affiliates who are in politics, medicine, business, and education, and are doing it very well.
Wow, thank you so much for saying that. And so, you lead right into something I want to ask Misha, because I know she's done a little research about this. And it is easy to have an opinion about anything that we really don't know about. And so, Misha, is there a little history you want to share with us about the Divine Nine and who they are and the impact?
Sure. So, you know, it was so interesting to see how these organizations were created and fairly quickly. And as Bishop McKenzie so eloquently said, uh, they're still so incredibly needed. You know, most of these organizations are only a little over 100 years old, and some haven't even reached their 100th anniversary, like Sigma Gamma Rho and Iota Phi Theta fraternity. And so we still super need this, and I think it's really cool that we can track the history of the Divine Nine founders and of these Black Greek letter organizations. So let's go into it. Black Greek letter organizations have been integral to Black culture since the early 20th century. They were created on the campuses of HBCUs, and they have been historically dedicated to combating racism, educational advancement, and strengthening of social bonds among Black students and professionals. The Divine Nine are 9 historically Black Greek letter organizations, also known as BGLOs. And that make up the National Pan-Hellenic Council, which we talked about before. And each of these fraternities and sororities are rich in history and service to the Black community. They include Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, which was founded in 1906, not at an HBCU. Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority was founded 1908 at Howard. Kappa Alpha Psi was founded 1911 at Indiana University. Omega Psi Phi fraternity was founded in 1911 at Howard. Delta Sigma Theta sorority was founded in 1913 at Howard University. Phi Beta Sigma fraternity was founded the following year at Howard. And then in 1920, Zeta Phi Beta sorority was founded at Howard in 1920. And actually, if you go back into the Afros coverage, we did a lot for their centennial because it was here in DC. So if you go back and see, they did a huge tribute to their founders, and it was a really nice program. So go back to that. The Sigma Gamma Rho sorority was founded in 1922 at Butler University, and Iota Phi Theta fraternity was founded in 1963 at Morgan State University.
That's quite a history. Thank you so much, Misha. Delegate Charles, let me ask you, what do you think the impact is of these sororities and fraternities, so many of whom were founded right in Washington, D.C. on the campus of Howard University?
I think the impact is amazing. Just when you break it down to the smallest chapters, my chapter, Lambda Gamma Gamma chapter, last year gave out over $50,000 in scholarships just in our local area. And when you look at all of the scholarship impact across all of the Divine Nine organizations, you look at the total amount of dollars we're pushing out. We're putting a lot of children through school. When you look at that, then you look at the other social action programs that we have throughout the fraternities and sororities. You know, we have a youth leadership conference in my chapter where we actually bring a lot of the children together, teach them about different job opportunities, scholarship opportunities, what they can look forward to after college, how to get in there. If you don't want to go to college, what's another pathway for you? Because we know that college isn't necessarily for everyone, but we teach them a whole lot of services and what they could possibly do. We also do programs where we take children to football games, to basketball games. So the community engagement piece, road cleanups, you know that the counties and municipalities are supposed to keep the roads clean, but you look out on some Saturdays and you'll see pink and green maybe out there cleaning up the roads. You may see red and white picking up on the roads. You may see purple and gold because we're engaged in our communities. You know, if we don't see the results that we want, the Divine Nine organizations, they come together and we get it done on our own if we're not getting the results we want from our government or who else. And so for me, when I got engaged in politics, a lot of it started from one of my father's high school buddies, but who was also one of our fraternity brothers. He poured into me, taught me a lot about the political process. We met once a week, and he's very actively engaged. A former mayor, former city council member in one of our municipalities in Prince George's County. And when I look at all of the other elected members from my fraternity and some of the other fraternities and sororities, you know, how we can all come together and talk and pour into each other to continuously move our communities forward in the best way possible. I think it's very important, the work that we do, very important. And we have to continue to grow and continue to bring additional people into our organizations that fit the mold and want to see the communities grow the same way we do as well.
And I think we also have to continue to collectively work with our communities, whether or not they are members of, you know, sorority or fraternity. We're the catalysts a lot of times for work that's, you know, being done, but by no means are members of the Divine Nine, these sororities and fraternities that we belong to. We're not the only ones out there, and so there's room at the table for everybody. So sometimes what happens, and you talked about stereotypes, is that the groups are so exclusive that they just, and I think one of our viewers, thank you so much, said something about the exclusivity and whether or not things are done just to benefit those who are inside of the organization. But that's not the truth. The truth is the work is really done. I know I can speak for the Divine Nine in general because I've seen the kind of work that they do. I can speak for Delta Sigma Theta sorority in particular. You get involved in the sorority, there are really so many impactful programs that, you know, you're expected to be to be a part of and to make a difference in the community. We don't just serve ourselves, because that would be suicide. And so, yeah, Renee West, you're right. The work really never stops. There is an idea a minute on the table and plenty of work. Bishop McKenzie, do you want to say anything? You've been involved in some of that work. Kevin Peck, I don't know if you want to say anything. I want to encourage our viewers. If you want to say anything about the work that your group is doing, we'd like to know about it.
Yeah, I'll let Bishop go first.
What would I say is we're a part of the village. We're a part of the village that helps train, raise, lead, and provide. We are not the only participants in the village, but we are a part of that village. And there are other village organizations that make up a whole. Just like, Kamala Harris's election, it should be celebrated and applauded, and she needs to be supported and held accountable, just like, but her election is not going to change everything for all of Black America. We think that Joe Biden's election is going to change everything about America. No, it may help us get back on the path towards unity. But we got a long way to go, because it took some years for all of this to unravel. It's going to take some years for it to be, for the pieces of the puzzle to be put. The genie's out of the bottle, and getting the genie back in the bottle is going to take some time. What we pray for is that it's not going to take 20 to 40 years for us to get to a better place. So we're a part. We're a part of that. We're in the trenches. We do work every single day, not just providing scholarship, but endowing chairs. It is like being in a leadership matrix, that when you become a part of the organization, it looks to see how you can get to the next place and to the next place. It's like iron sharpening iron. It's like you get exposed to experiences and people, and that aha moments happen. You're like, I could do that. Oh, and then there are people in that organizations to help resource you, so that you can get to the next place. So that's the marvelous thing about our founders, is that they were never in it for themselves. They didn't wear a whole lot of signs and symbols like we do today. They were never in it for themselves. The signs and symbols were on the inside. They believed the values that they espoused and passed on to us, that we would embody these values and help to make our community, to be a part of the community, make the community whole. And so that's why as I say, this leadership funnel, this leadership matrix that helps to inspire people to greater and to do greater things is there. So out of the Divine Nine, you have a lot of people who are the first, the first MIT alumni, the first PhD this, the first this, the first woman to run, African American woman to run for the presidents of the United States, the first Black brigadier general, and the list goes on through all the Divine Nine, because it becomes an inspiring and resourcing experience, so that we can go beyond our boundaries to make a better world.
Absolutely. That's great. Kevin?
It's always hard coming behind a bishop. But anyway, I'm representing Kappa Alpha Psi. I see my brothers out there. What's up, Stretch? I see Renee out there. I see Rachel, cousin Betty. Everybody's tuning in. Look, when you think about the word divine, it's some kind of divinity into it. And if you look at most of these organizations, they started out based in God. Most of them. I don't know the exact history of each one, but I know the one for us. It was 10 brothers who came together, Christian brothers, to come together to really make changes in politics, in economic situations, in achievement, and just coming together as one. They were on Indiana University's campus, which wasn't a historically Black college or university, which meant that it was just them. As a lot of you guys know, when you go to these other colleges and universities, you are the minority, and you have to usually start certain groups just to connect in a way that makes an impact. But you don't connect with everybody in the same way in college, even though you have classes with some people you have more common interests with. Some people do things a little different, and you guys like to do things, and so you join a club or you join a organization based on what draws your personal, I guess, with something calls to you usually, and sometimes when it's from the family, it's your family beating you in the head over all the years, and you're seeing all of the good things, and then you're seeing the people in your family. You say, "Wait a minute, my uncle, he's a doctor. What? He's a Kappa too?" And you say, "So and so's a judge. He's a Kappa." And she says, "Oh, my great grandmother was a founder of this." And so you get to see people who are successful who are around you, and it's like, is this And so I would rather connect with somebody who's successful than not successful. So when I look at all of the Divine Nine, I see success. I see people who are able to start and finish something and join something and build a network that becomes beneficial to them throughout their whole life. I could be in the room, never met a Kappa before, and as soon as we say we're in the same fraternity, all of the facade goes down, all of the masks go down, all of the things that are kind of like the posturing goes down, and you can get right down to it. It was like, I'm going to do it just because you're my guy. Now, is that right or wrong? I don't know, but I know that when you're in the club, you're in the club, and this is not for people against not being in the club and not joining a club, but the membership does have its benefits. Now, if you say that it's not for you, then it's not for you. And there's a lot of people who have gone on through school, and people think people change, but a lot of times, like Bishop Vastas, your view changes of them as soon as they pledge the fraternity or sorority. They could have been the same. Now, there are examples of people who had no kind of personality and didn't have any kind of ego, who after they pledged, they take it and they carry the fraternity or sorority in a way that is not meant to be carried across the campus in a respectful way. So I'm saying it's both sides of that, and it's people who see that and it's like, oh, you're arrogant now. You think you all that. You go through all of these, and this is college stuff that I'm probably referring back to, and some other people probably remember those moments. But then as you get out of it, it's like all of the things we did, and it could have been silly, it could have been pledging, it could have been whatever. We're not doing that anymore. We're grown up now. So now we're in organizations. The alumni is definitely making a monetary difference and a presence. By our presence, a lot of, especially the fraternities, being in our young Black youth's lives as role models has been, to me, what's been the biggest give back, because you get a chance to just say one thing that could change a young man's life from going from the street to the boardroom.
Amen. That's really good, Kevin. And unlike traditionally white colleges and universities and the fraternities and sororities, the Divine Nine work continues way past graduation. It's not something that you just do when you're in college. And so I think, Delegate Charles brought it up, Bishop McKenzie brought it up. There are people who are serving And Judge Trammell, who weighed in, who was the first black judge in Buffalo, New York, he said he attributes his success. I think he's an Omega man, Delegate Charles.
Yeah, the gentleman of Omega Psi Phi, as he affectionately refers to himself.
Right, and I think he's in his early 90s, and so he gave you a shout out earlier. But think about it, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. John Lewis was a member of Phi Beta Sigma. We have already said several times that Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, having pledged right there on the campus of its founding, on Howard University. And so we know that. We could run down the list of every organization. Bishop Vashti McKenzie, who made history in her own right, a member of Delta Sigma Theta. And we can go on down the Delta list and include, Aretha Franklin and Dorothy Height and Lena Horne and Roberta Flack, Shirley Chisholm, Marsha Fudge. We could run down the list. But it's not just a Delta list. You can run down the Kappa list, the Alpha list, the Zeta list, and the non-Greek list as well. But a lot of, Delegate Charles said it, a lot of people cut their teeth, if you will, for their political careers right there on the campuses of our historically black colleges and universities. I know we are running short on time, and usually what we do right in the middle of the chicken box is we get an Afro fact. And so here's what we're going to do. Misha's going to give us an Afro fact. And Misha, I hope you're going to say a little bit about this week's edition as well, because it's historic in nature and it fits into what we're talking about. And then we'll get some closing remarks. We're going to ask everybody to start preparing your 30 seconds or 45 seconds on the box. So we'll be doing that. All right, Nisha Green.
So before I start, I also just want to add to the conversation about the really, really important work that's done by members of the Divine Nine that does not exclusively affect people in the organization, but they really work to help their communities. Obviously, we talked about the importance and significance of the Divine Nine in terms of, but I can say I in particular, not a member of an organization, really, really was able to benefit off of the work that members of the Divine Nine were doing. I went to I remember going to SAT training sponsored by the Kappas. Of course, I got that because my dad was a Kappa. But again, I have friends who never pledged a day in their lives, but have Delta Sigma Theta scholarships or AKA scholarships, and just seeing the work and the impact that the Divine Nine has outside of the people in their organizations, I think is really, really important. So I just wanted to underscore that. This week in the Afro, we have a special or it is our special edition. This week's Afro is We're Still Here. You guys may recognize that title. We had two We're Still Here editions last year, last summer, but this is a little bit different. If you go on our website, you'll see that We're Still Here will be a monthly tribute to Black excellence, Black greatness, Black history, and where we are today, which is that after almost 129 years, the Afro is still here and telling the story of our people. And so this month, we are focusing on community activists. Please make sure you get a copy, subscribe, and check out the work not only done historically, but that's still happening today. We actually highlight activists under 35, and I think it's about 22 young people here in the DMV who are making their voices heard and making a major impact. So make sure you check out that edition. And this week's Afro fact, I think, kind of goes right into that, which is we are here. American history and Afro history.
Oops, you're breaking up a little bit, Misha. Yeah. But you're breaking up some. Try it again, and if not, we'll wait until you can get a little clearer reception. Can you hear us? It's a beautiful picture, but I think Misha is frozen, and that will happen at times. All right, and so what I believe Misha was going to share with us this Afro fact. It didn't come out of a. It's not as much out of American history, more in Afro history. And Misha just selected the fact that I didn't know this was her Afro fact, but she sent it to me right before she went out. That our parents, Vashti, my parents, James and Frances Wood, were named editors of the Washington Afro way back in 1952. All right, go ahead, Misha. I think you're back.
I am back, but it's kind of funny to hear you share this.
I didn't know what your fact was until you sent me that note when you were going out, but go ahead, go on, you shared your fact.
Okay, so this Afro fact is inspired by this day in 1952. The Afro announced that James and Frances M. Wood were editors of the Washington Afro-American. The article highlights Frances and James' upbringing, as James was the son of Frances Wood, head of Baltimore schools. Fact check me, Dr. Draper, and Frances was daughter of then Afro publisher Carl Murphy, and their education at Howard and University of Wisconsin, respectively, was also pointed out. The announcement talks about James, who was 27, as an energetic, relative newcomer to the Afro when he began his work 3 years before getting this major promotion as DC editor. He started at the Afro right after getting out of Howard. And since we're talking sororities and fraternities on today's show, the article also mentions the then Mrs. Wood as a member of Delta Sigma Theta and Kappa Silhouettes. And I did not put this in this note, or at least somehow I'm not seeing it, but I do remember from the article, which was really fun. It also shouts out their 2 children at the time. I'm not going to say the year because I did.
You already did. You already did.
No, what I'll say is I won't say how old you were, but there was James and Frances Wood, who were their 2 little children at the time.
Well, thank you, Misha. I will give you a little fact check. First, James, who was called Biddy, was also a member of the Divine Nine. He was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. He went to Howard when he was 15 years old, and his father, who you mentioned, Francis Marion Wood, was the first director of colored schools for Baltimore. PhD, recruited out of Louisville, Kentucky. All right, so thank you for that Afro fact, Misha Green.
I love that Rachel's now breaking it down even further. I promise you guys, one day an Afro fact will go into the vaults for sure.
For real. All right, and so in these last couple of minutes, we're going to get on the box. Anything that you'd like to say about this topic? Any parting words that you have? We're going to ask that you share that, and so we're going to start with you, Delegate Charles, and then we'll go to you, Bishop McKenzie, and then Kevin and Misha. And if there's anything left to say, I'll say it. If not, we'll just say amen and thank you so much for being with us. Delegate Charles, you can just get on the box and talk about this subject, any kind of way you want to.
Well, one, I just want to start just by saying thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of this discussion. Thank you for giving me the time to have some time for my work to get that done as well. But what I want to leave you with is that this isn't a Black people versus a Divine Nine issue. This is all of us coming together. It's us against them, and it's them who are holding us back. And so when we all come together, it doesn't matter if we're Kappas, it doesn't matter if we are Alphas, it doesn't matter if we're Omegas, Deltas, AKA Zetas, Sigmas. We are all one group with one purpose, and that is to move our people forward the best way that we possibly can, and it is to work with everybody the best possible way we can as well. We are a team, and like I said, it's not about Blacks versus the African Americans versus the Divine Nine. We are all one, all together. That's what I'll leave you with.
Thank you, Bishop.
Well, I was thinking when you said, hey, get your thoughts together about your last comments today, And so it reminded me of an analogy that I had made before. And that is about the difference between a hummingbird and a vulture. And both the hummingbird and the vulture fly over wilderness and dry areas with little signs of vegetation, all of that kind of stuff. And all the vultures see is rotting meat, because that's what they're looking for. And they thrive on the dead bodies of other animals. That's their diet. That's what they live for, to eat off the demise of other people, of other animals. The hummingbird ignores the smelling, rotting flesh of dead animals. Instead, they look for the colorful blooms and the desert plants. The vultures live on what was. They live on the past. They fill themselves with dead and gore. But the hummingbird lives on what is, and they seek new life. They fill themselves with freshness and life. Each bird is looking for something, and they find what they're looking for. And so as you go forward in life, whether you're Greek or non-Greek, wherever you are, you will find what you're looking for, either to eat off the dead of others or what is demised, or either you will look for what is good. So whatever success you're looking for in life, whether it's a fight or to stay the course, or to cause a champion, to best your opposition, a problem to confront, an uphill battle, a mountain to move. If we stick together and work together and set aside our vulture ways and become more like hummingbirds, the vulture looks big and bad, can take you down. But it's the hummingbird that finds life and lives. Maybe if we come together and set aside our vulture rhetoric and pick up some of the ways of life, that we would be more united and more successful than where we are right now.
Thank you, Bishop. Kevin, I'm so sorry you have to follow Bishop again.
Follow the hummingbird. I have to follow the oneness. But I'm up for the task, because look, it's always going to be something out there and someone out there who doesn't agree with what you agree with. They're not going to think like you think. It's always going to be some who see the glass half full and some who see it half empty. The thing about it is, what is your mindset? What do you focus on? What is it that moves you to the next level? Whatever that next level is. Do you think you have to be poor? No, you can think that you can be rich. Now, if you're always thinking in a poverty mindset, then you will never achieve a wealthy mindset. And that's not always talking about prosperous in money. It's talking about prosperous in your family, in love, in health, in everything that you do. What are you focusing on? If you're focusing on, I didn't pledge because I didn't like this person, or I don't like the Divine Nine because blah, 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 or whatever it is that you think. And then when you really fact check, like I said, everything comes now across the airways very fast. And nobody wants to fact check. But when you go fact check and really see what these organizations do, you're going to find that it is some divineness in the nineness. So take a look. It's not too late, even if you didn't make it in college and say it wasn't for you. And you say, you know what? They are doing some things that really resonate with my spirit and my soul, and I can make an impact, because we all can only make an impact of the people that we are able to impact. So if you get involved, we become much stronger. But when we tear each other down, we become weaker. So I like the oneness. I'm going to go with my 1911 brother, Delicate Charles, with the oneness. I'm going to end with that. I'm off the box, y'all.
All right, Misha Green. Thank you, impeccable.
Yeah, I think you all have been so eloquent in talking about the importance of unity that I don't want to continue to harp on that. But I do think it's so incredibly important in the time that we're in now, where everything seems so divided. As a millennial, obsessed with Instagram in particular, I know that division sometimes seems cool, right? Hating on somebody is like the thing. We see so many memes and laugh at that, right? But at the end of the day, the importance of this time in the major distance that we have is that we have the ability to unify. And we must unify. And it's particularly thinking about the events that happened at the Capitol last week, and the importance of looking, past what separates us and really focusing on what brings us together. And so, for those that may feel some type of way about the Divine Nine and or sororities and fraternities in general, or feel like there's a sense of exclusivity, I really, encourage people to think outside that box and say, well, how can I get involved and help out? Or what are they doing that I might, raise my attention or my understanding of needs for my community? Because that's what we got to focus on at this point, is empowering our community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Misha Green. Delegate Charles, thank you. Bishop McKenzie, thank you. Impeccable. Thank you for taking a moment from vacation. Misha always, we call her our millennial friend. She's wise, and she's really a millennial boomer, or a boomer millennial. And so I'm just going to close picking up on this entire unity theme, because I think that's what we've been talking about, how we come together to benefit our community. And so there is an African proverb, you may have heard this, about a young child that was lost in the African village. And he was lost, for quite a while. And the members of the community put out the word, we must find this child. And so everybody left their homes, and they went through the woods, and they went all over, and they really could not find the child. And finally, someone had this idea that they should hold hands and just make one human chain across the village. And there were so many people, they were able to do that. And so they held on to one another's hands, and they started, through the forest, and they finally found him. And unfortunately, they were too late when they found him. And another child, with tears streaming from her eyes, said, if only we had held hands sooner. So when we hold hands sooner, when we come together for the common good, as Delegate Charles so eloquently said, we're not the enemy. There are a whole lot of battles that we need and can fight and win through coming together collectively. So we've held hands a lot of times, but I'm praying that we will hold hands whether you're a member of the Divine Nine or not. And let's together do the work while we recognize and celebrate the work that these courageous groups and others have done and continue to do. So again, thank you so much. Please support the Afro. Kevin would tell us that for less than the cost of 2 Uber Eats, you can get a digital subscription, $40 a year to get a digital subscription to the Afro, $100 a year if you're a person that likes to have both the print and the digital. We'll mail it to you. You don't have to look for it. And we'll mail that to you. And you can pay in installments if you need to do so. And so American Express said a membership has its privileges. You become an Afro member. There are not many free independent Black newspapers left in the country. I just need to tell you, less than 200 in the entire country. And so we cannot allow others to speak for us. We should be the experts speaking on behalf of our own communities. And so the Bible says you have not because you ask not. And so I'm asking if you would consider a subscription, a membership to the Afro. Just go to afro.com and you'll see a drop down where you can do that. So thank you so much. Again, thank you to our guests. Take care. And until next week, I'm Frances Tony Draper, representing who am I representing? The Boomers. And you are, Kevin?
I'm Kevin Impeccable Peck. I'm representing Gen X. Listen, I get my mind reset. If you guys can see that background, that ocean, that infinity pool back there, has got me reset, y'all. And guess what? The pandemic allows us to still work anywhere in the world, even though the internet is slow. Hopefully, I don't sound drunk like I'm on the drunk stream. But it's always good to see you. I said I wasn't going to be here, but I couldn't miss it. My bishop was on. Family was on, and I get a chance to meet Delegate Nick as well. So thank you for hanging out with us on the Chicken Box.
And then on behalf of our millennial Misha, you want to just say goodbye and we're gone.
Yes. Thank you guys always for tuning into the Chicken Box. We love you. We love you. As Dr. Draper said, subscribe to the Afro 129 Years of Legacy, but also follow us on social media. You're looking at us on Facebook now, but follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, and follow us on YouTube at Afro News.
Oh, and yes, Misha, before I forget, we've got a campaign. We're trying to get to 10,000 followers on Instagram. I think we're up to like 9,700.
Yes.
And so if you would just go to Afro News on Instagram and just, follow us, share, I think we can get to 10,000 before the next chicken box. And so thank you all so much. Take care. Have a great rest of your week.